Hamas headquarters?
I again cannot speak to an individual strike where I don't have all of the facts at my
I
disposal.
have just two more questions. One, I think just to follow up on what Matt and others and someone's been saying, I mean, the American public is really opposed. I mean, they are for a ceasefire. They want a ceasefire. This is the first time that a ceasefire has become such a dirty word. So why not go along with the sentiment of the public? That would be quite democratic, wouldn't it?
So first of all, I've seen a number of polls about this very question, but it actually doesn't matter. We don't make our decisions based on polls. We make our decisions based on what we believe are the best foreign policy judgments on behalf of the American people and their national security interests. And the president and the secretary have come to the judgment that a ceasefire at this time would only benefit Hamas. But we have been very clear that we believe there should be expanded humanitarian pauses to protect civilians, that there should be ways for civilians to get out of harm's way, and that we should do everything we can to get humanitarian assistance in for civilians in Gaza. The secretary has spoken very clearly that in his judgment, far too many Palestinian civilians have been killed as a result of this conflict. Far too many children have been killed as a result of this conflict. There's a tragedy that has been inflicted upon the people of Gaza that is not of their own making. It's because Hamas launched a terrorist attack on October 7th. Israel has a right to conduct military operations to hold those terrorists accountable. We want them to do it in a way that minimizes civilian harm, and we want to do everything we can to get humanitarian assistance into civilians. And that is the work that we are doing every day to try to effectuate.
And lastly, by the way, history did not begin on October 7th, but let's not get into that. Do you have anything to say about a more mundane issue like the visa waiver?
So with respect to the visa waiver program, so we are aware of reports that there are American citizens in the West Bank who are unable to transit through Israel as they are allowed to do under the requirements of the visa waiver program. We have expressed concerns about that to the government of Israel. I won't get into the full details of our private diplomatic conversations, but we expect Israel to address those concerns. We expect them to be in full compliance with the visa waiver program, and there are remedial measures that are available to us if they are not.
Okay, let's just, on that, like they can be suspended?
There are a full range of remedial measures that can be taken before ultimate suspension. That is, of course, for any country in the visa waiver program, the ultimate action that we can take. There are measures you can take to try to bring a country back into compliance. I can't get into the specifics from here. There are a range. Hold on. There are a range of measures. We can go into it in detail, but offline. But
okay,
go ahead.
But I mean, well, we can talk about this later. But literally, I mean, after October 7th, it was going to be literally impossible for Israel to continue to meet the criteria for this. Is what you're saying now that you have told when you're expressing your concerns to the Israelis, are you telling them that, hey, you're no longer in compliance with what you agreed to and fix it, or something's going to happen?
I am not going to get into the exact conversation that we have had, but we have expressed our concerns that American citizens in Israel or in the West Bank that want to travel through Israel cannot do so, cannot fully exercise their rights under the program. We expect them to be able to do so.
Are Israeli passport holders aware of the fact that the actions of their government may eliminate them from the program, so that they would have to go back and get visas?
I don't know if they were before. They probably are now.
All right. And then just the other thing is that, yeah, you said the letter that I mentioned earlier didn't talk about a ceasefire.
Was I wrong about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We also renew our call for a humanitarian ceasefire to ease the suffering and to help facilitate humanitarian operations and the release of all hostages.
So
You don't agree with that?
So-
You think that that's not,
so,
that's I'm quoting from the letter.
so you're right. They called it a ceasefire. We are for a humanitarian pause to allow the delivery of humanitarian assistance and
how can you say then that
and ensure the release of all hostages. So
They didn't say
you were right.
humanitarian pause like you got in the G7 statement.
Correct.
They said
We would-
humanitarian ceasefire.
We would
which
disagree.
is-
We disagree with a call for a ceasefire.
Okay, and so you
absolutely.
don't, and so,
But
and that is still not a problem, that you have two of whom are former senior White House officials, and one of whom, is well known, and not just because of who her husband was, but for her own work in her own right,
As I said,
publicly disagreeing with the administration. And this isn't like, some 23-year-old kid who's got a, who's working upstairs and on the fourth floor or something like that. These are serious people.
as I said, we expect them to exercise their independent judgment, fully support their ability to do so. With respect to a ceasefire, oftentimes when ceasefire gets thrown around, it's the idea of a ceasefire that will lead to a full cessation of hostilities, a humanitarian pause. I understand it's called a ceasefire.
Are you suggesting
I'm-
that they
there-
don't really know what they're talking
No,
about?
there may, I don't want to get into the full details, but a short pause that would achieve the goals that they outlined is something that we would support, of course.
Well,
Go ahead, Olivia.